Hi champs, welcome back. And in this video, we'll be entering the best part of the lesson. Okay, so this is exactly where we try to understand what are the classifications of reactions and what are the characteristics of those reactions. Okay, we'll also get a new perspective on what chemical reactions are all about. Let me revise. When two chemicals react and when they form a new chemical, that is called a chemical reaction, correct? Yes, it's right. When two substances react, called reactants, they react and they form new chemical substance called a product, then that is a chemical reaction. These are some of the rough, definitions we saw with respect to what a chemical reaction is. But now here we are going to get a new perspective. Now see, chemical reactions involve the breaking and making of bonds between atoms to produce new substances. I'll give you one example which we have already discussed. Zinc reacting with sulfuric acid. Okay. What is sulfuric acid? Sulfuric acid is H2SO4, and that is nothing but the bond between hydrogen atom and the sulfate group. Hydrogen atom with the sulfate group forms H2SO4. Now I have zinc. Zinc reacts with sulfuric acid. Zinc forms a new bond with sulfate group. It forms zinc sulfate and hydrogen is released. So the existing bond break and new bonds are formed. That is what is chemical reaction all about. Okay, so this is a new perspective with respect to what chemical reaction is all about. So let's go ahead and see what are the various types of reaction. The various types of reaction that are listed in our book as far as this lesson is concerned is combination, decomposition, displacement, double displacement, oxidation and reduction reaction. So in this video we will discuss about the combination reaction. It requires a story, 2-3 decades back when we had to paint our homes. What we do is we go to the market and we buy some shells. Those shells are nothing but calcium oxides. The calcium oxide exists in shell form, and that was called the quicklime. All we do is bring that shell home and then soak it in water, add some water to it. When we add water to it, the quicklime reacts with water. It forms calcium hydroxide. In common terms, it's called the slaked lime. A lot of heat is also released. Now, this slaked lime, you can just add tint and then you have to put it in the wall, and it sticks to the wall. After 1 or 2 days it dries, it sticks to the wall with the tint that you poured into it. It could be yellow, it could be green, it could be, there are many tints, the chemicals, in small bottles. You need to add it to the slaked lime, mixture with water. The aqueous form of slaked lime, you need to add it. But what we need to see here is quicklime plus water. There are two reactants here, quicklime, water. What is the product form? The product formed is slaked lime. So there is a combination of two elements or two compounds which form a single compound in the product side. This is what is combination all about, right? So calcium oxide and water combine to form a single product, calcium hydroxide. Such a reaction in which a single product is formed from two or more reactants is known as a combination reaction. Now let's get to the definition. Another definition: a reaction in which a single product is formed from two or more reactants is known as a combination reaction. That is the definition. And let's continue with the story of painting. Okay, that is the second reaction which completes the act of painting. So calcium hydroxide plus, now calcium hydroxide, that's a slaked lime. You put it in the wall, very good. When you put it in the wall, what happens is this calcium hydroxide reacts with the carbon dioxide that is present in the atmosphere. It goes to form calcium carbonate. That calcium carbonate is actually, it's solid. It sticks to the wall with a color that you already poured into it. So that is what painting is all about. Now you may ask me, hey, I painted it with a lot of water. What happens to the water? The water gets, evaporated after a day or two. That's what is given, H2O is in the liquid form, but then that liquid form again, it gets evaporated after a day or two. You find only the calcium carbonate, in the wall. So that's what is painting all about. There ends the story of painting. But is this a reaction which is an example for combination reaction? No. The reaction of quicklime with water to form slaked lime is an example of combination reaction. But this is the completion of the story of painting our homes few decades back. Now we have other methods of painting. We've got the chemicals, like acrylic paint, etc., etc. There are many types of paints which are used, but we don't see this often nowadays. But this is how it happened 2 or 3 decades back. There are other examples for combination reaction. Carbon plus oxygen gives carbon dioxide, and hydrogen plus oxygen gives water. So these are also examples of combination reactions. And again, the definition. So you can just pause the video and you can have a look at that. And again, a repetition. But the reason for repetition is different. Now see, quicklime plus water gives slaked lime plus heat. Heat. So now we get a new type of reaction, a classification. Again, we understand a large amount of heat is released during the reaction, correct, and the reactions in which heat is released along with the formation of product are called the exothermic chemical reactions. So any reaction where heat is released with the formation of product is called exothermic reaction. And why do we call it exothermic? These two again are examples. Carbon plus oxygen gives carbon dioxide, and methane burns in oxygen to give carbon dioxide plus water. All these are examples of exothermic reaction because these two reactions that I mentioned, the last two reactions, they also release a good amount of heat. The decomposition of vegetable matter is again an exothermic reaction. We eat food and we release heat. Our energy is in the form of heat, right? So the term exo means outside and therm is the measurement of heat. So in any reaction where heat comes outside, heat is released, and with proper equipments we can go ahead and measure the heat also. Exactly what is the amount of heat that is released, we can go ahead and measure that. Such reactions where heat is released are called the exothermic reactions. Now let's understand what respiration is all about. Respiration is very interesting. The food we eat, say for example potato, rice, all this contains something called the carbohydrate. So when we consume that, it gets converted into something called glucose, and that is stored in our cells. Okay, we have glucose in our cells, and when we inhale, the oxygen that we inhale, it is circulated to all the cells in the body, and that oxygen reacts with the glucose and it forms energy. Now let's get into that. So this is the reaction C6H12O6 in aqueous form, which is in it exists in the aqueous form, the glucose inside our body, and oxygen, again, it gets dissolved. Oxygen is dissolved, and that is also in the aqueous form, and when it reacts with the glucose, it forms carbon dioxide, water, and energy. And where is that energy stored? That energy is stored in special form of cells called the ATP. Okay, so let's see what ATP are. It's not a cell, it's like it's a compound. It's called the adenosine triphosphate. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have told it's a cell, because adenosine triphosphate stores the energy just like a cell stores electrical energy. Just like a battery or cell stores the electrical energy, the adenosine triphosphate stores the energy that is produced by respiration. So these are the principal molecules for storing the energy in cells, and the energy can be transferred to cells when it is required to perform various biological activities. We walk, we talk, we do a lot of activities, we dance, we sing. All this requires energy, and that energy is provided by the adenosine triphosphate. Now there's a bond there are 3 bonds that are formed, okay, when we have this respiration produce energy, and the energy is actually stored in the form of bonds. When that bond breaks, energy is released. That's the reason we have adenosine triphosphate. When we do some activity, the bonds break and energy is released. So it becomes adenosine diphosphate. And we still need more energy. That bond again breaks, it becomes adenosine monophosphate. So at that time, we don't have energy to perform. So what we do? All we need to do is consume some food. So the carbohydrate again will get digested, it will get converted into glucose, and then the energy is again stored in the adenosine triphosphate as bonds. New bonds are formed, and the monophosphate becomes diphosphate, and the diphosphate again becomes triphosphate. So this is a cycle. This cycle continues. As we consume food, more energy, we get more energy to perform various biological activities. And see, this is not a part of 10th standard, so I'll stop it with this because this is a very brief discussion. I'll try to, put a video where when you have the time, when you have the extra time, when you really feel, okay, let me go for something extra, you can click on the link and you can get to know more about respiration. I'll try to put that video as soon as possible. Okay, so that's all about respiration. Thank you. We'll meet in the next video. So